Hi guys, my name is Dr. Rocker and today I'm gonna show you how to use colored pencils in combination with Copic markers. So let's get a piece of paper. Today we will use a Lana Bristol board, but you can use any Bristol paper you like. And in order to show you this properly, we will need a sketch first. And for that we will draw Son Goku. So let's do that real quick. Okay, so here we have our base drawing, ready to get colored. I will use my coloring board to find the right markers for this drawing. For example, the hair on the reference matches the BG02 color from my Copics, so let's find this one. Trying it out on an extra piece of paper, and looks nice. And just like that, I got all the markers I will need for my base drawing. Don't forget to use an extra piece of paper when using alcohol-based markers, because otherwise they will bleed through and stain your desk. When you know that you will use colored pencils after doing a layer of Copics, you don't have to blend the Copics perfectly. But the better you do it, the less work you will have afterwards. If you want to know how to blend perfectly with Copic markers, check out my video about how to blend with Copic markers. Link in description. When using Copic markers, you will be way quicker than when having to layer all the colors just with colored pencils. And definitely no white grain from the paper will show through. The markers don't damage the paper as much. And with this method, everything looks way more radiant. So, as hopefully you can see in the background, I'm done with Son Goku with the Copic markers. Yes, I'm done! It's a decent drawing already and you can stop at this phase, that's totally okay. But if you want to have really deep colors and a very radiant look, you will have to continue with colored pencils. Like these Prismacolors. So let's get rid of all them Copics, because we need some space for all those loads and loads of Prismacolor colored pencils. Okay people, quite a lot of colors, and now we need to find the right ones for our project here. Therefore I will use the extra piece of paper I used to find the right Copic markers for this drawing beforehand. So let's try and find a blue tone for the hair. Blue section, and I think this and this one could be fitting quite good. Now I'm trying them out on the extra piece of paper to see how they look without any Copic markers, and then I'll try them on the actual color. Looks pretty good. Also this one. I'm also picking out a real bright tone, which means now we have a dark, a middle and a bright tone for this particular color. Now I need some colors for the trousers, and I will do it like this. If you hold it next to the drawing, it's easier to spot the right one, because it should be very similar. In this case, it would be this one. Trying it out on an extra piece of paper, and you can see it fits perfectly. A middle tone again, and I also found a dark tone. And I guess those will work pretty well together. Skin color, and one for the ribbons. Now we picked out all the necessary colors, and I will also use a colorless blender. And also very important when using colored pencils, you need to have a good sharpener. Okay, now we have some sharp pencils, so it's time for some basics. The best way to create some nice shadings with those pencils is to start quite soft, as I do right here. And even fade out a little bit more. And then you do the same thing again, so you can layer the colors. And if you use hard pressure more and more, you will have a nice fade out. But be careful not to use too much hard pressure when you want to use another color like this. This is a darker red. And I will start with more pressure right away and mix it up. And now we have a nice shading already. But as you can see, there's a lot of grain from the paper. So you can use a colorless blender now and do this to blend them together. Still a little bit of grain, but way better. And you can do a really nice shading with this tool. Or you can also use white, because with white you can get a really creamy and very nice blending effect, like this. Now I will do the same thing right here, but I will also use this area where I laid down some Copic markers. You can see with way less work there's already a nice blending going on with no grain from the paper right here. So you're way quicker when doing it like that. And you can also use this tool, the colorless blender, or also the white one. Works nicely and saves you a lot of time. So let's put this knowledge to good use on a real drawing. It's always a good idea to start with the less important areas, in this case the trousers. This way you can get in the right mood and just feel everything for a bit. I'm just layering a bit of the very light tone right here. Almost not to see, but still it will be seen because it's getting darker and more radiant. Already switching to a darker one. Using more pressure and then easing out. Like that. I just want to layer a bit of the color right here. And then I will use the lighter tone again and ease into this area with more and more pressure. And just like that we are getting a nice shading. And now I will take the real dark one because I want to have a hard edge right here. So you can use more pressure from the beginning, that's also totally okay. But then ease out and use the middle tone again to blend them together. You can use a big brush like this to get rid of all the grain. Because when you blow on the paper all the time, you might spit on it, and when you use your hand, it might be too fat and you might smear it, so this is the best. And always keep your pencil sharpened. I know it's a pain, but it's necessary. Now I will use a bit of white for a bit of highlights. You can mix white with almost every color. That's the most important pen, I dare say. And that would be a bit too much, and I don't want to overdo it, so I will go back in again with the original color and blend it together. Also, the white pen is very, very soft. Very nice to work with. Another thing that's very important with those colored pencils, when you do layerings like this, where you use really only a little bit of pressure, if there's not a lot of pressure, you can mix them together greatly. But once you have added more pressure, like I do right here, you will not be able to blend quite a lot with some other colors again. Because there's a layer of wax from this color in this case, and you won't be able to draw over this layer again. Keep that in mind, it's very important. If you have bigger areas like this, you can also use a lot of ground layers, just like that. Then you're even quicker. Very light pressure, and now you go in with the blending colors. So now that we are warmed up, it's time to move to the interesting areas, the skin. If you move to a different color, make sure to do this with the colorless pencil if you have used it, and also with the white pen. Get rid of the color that might still be on the tip. So let's start right here on the bicep. I'm using not a lot of pressure, just a little bit, Then trying out the next tone, doing some layers, and with my darkest tone I will only do a little bit right here and then blend it together with the next one. Yes, Lawrence, I know. I'm using way more pressure now. Going back to the first tone. Layering it out until the end. And then use white. Mixing it up a little bit again. And that's it. Nice shading for the bicep. In this area right here, I will even use a bit of a darker tone. The brown one from the trousers. If I would do a comic book drawing, this would be totally black. Just layering it out and then mixing it up with this tone again. This area right here should also be a bit darker because it's shadowed from the face, from the head actually. So I will do very, very gently some dark layers with the really dark tone. Then add a layer of the darkest skin tone. Also very gentle, because I want this to be shadowed out, but I also don't want it to be too dark. Now I will add the middle tone and already use way more pressure than just before. Starting gently and then increase the pressure as we go along. It's just a thing you have to practice. But it's not hard, really. Once you know how it's done, you will achieve great victories with those colored pencils. And now the lightest tone. The most important thing is the face, because that's what you will look at first when you look at the drawing. And again, I will do some really, really light shadings right there with the darkest tone. Almost no pressure, because I want the whole drawing to be quite bright actually, not too dark. All I need to do in this area is to blend in the marker strokes actually. So I don't even have to mix this colored pencil color with another one. Just want to make it more smooth. On the hair area, I will show you that it also works with just two different colored pencils. Quite dark compared to the very light blue one I will use here, because you can do so much with the pressure. You can just shade this with a little bit more pressure right here and then go out of it quite fast. And now I will use the very light one already and blend it in properly. And you can achieve quite some shadings even if you only use two of those. And this area I will do even lighter, because the light is coming from here, so this one needs to be lighter. You could use white also. If you want to do some highlights, you can blend it with white if you like, but it's not even necessary. And the thing with just two colors from the colored pencils works especially good if you did the layers with the Copic markers before. Because then you only have to add on something that's already there. Just smoothen it out actually, giving it some extra juice. Look at that. That's lovely, right? If you did a lot of groundwork with the Copic markers already, like I did here, you can also just use one pencil, one colored pencil, and look. Just adding some darker areas and it looks way better already. And that's super fast. You can do a whole drawing like that. Do a little bit more with the Copic markers and then do some highlights or some darker areas like I did here, and voila. But if you like, you could also use a white tone again to do some extra highlights. For more radiance. And here we go with our Son Goku drawing. Colored pencils mixed with Copic markers. But now I have an extra bonus tip for you guys. Do you like to draw with gray tones? Then check this out. As you can see, I prepared a little Iron Man head right here. Same paper like this one and also the same inking tools. And now I will use these gray tones from Copic's, warm gray tones in this case, to color the piece. As you can see, lovely Iron Man head. Now I could use some black and white Prismacolor colored pencils to deepen the shadings. But a thing that's way easier to use than those are pencils. Just use a pencil, and if you have one of these for smudging, that's perfect as well. That's just a normal 2B pencil, and you take it now and flatten the tip on an extra piece of paper. That's enough. And now I will go in right here and use the pencil to get a sharp line. And then, as I go along, I will reduce the pressure, or even do just this and make a nice shading over the shading from the Copic markers. It works brilliantly, you will see. Now you can use the finger to smudge it, or even better with one of these tools. And smudge it and make a really nice shading over the Copics. That's nice. Since this is a pencil, you can do very small details also in the shadings. And also very sharp edges. You can't do such sharp edges with alcohol-based markers because they will bleed out a little bit at least. And if you use an eraser like this, you can even do some effects. Look at that. That's great, right? It works so well. And also, like with the colored pencils, when you use Copic markers first, you are way faster than just penciling everything out. And it's way more juicy. And should you make a mistake and do this, you can always use an eraser and clean it up a bit again. Works brilliantly as well. It's even easier to do those on a darker shadow, a darker shade. Is it shade or shadow? I don't know. My mother's tongue is German actually, so sorry about those little mistakes. As long as the message comes through, right? But look how good this looks. And if it's supposed to be very white, you can also just use this thing right here. There's a little bit of smudge on it from before. You can even go crazy and don't be so careful, because you can use the eraser from the other side. Just like that. And the best thing about using a pencil, you can always go over and over the layers you already did. It's no problem. With colored pencils, you don't have this luxury. It has to fit at least the second time you want to go over the same surface. But with the pencils, you can go over and over again, no problem whatsoever. And if you want to, you can also use a Posca marker to do some rim lights or stuff like that. Works pretty well. And that makes for a very decent drawing, I dare say. And that brings us to the end of my tutorial on how to mix Copic markers with colored pencils, or just pencils. I hope you had fun watching this video, and more so, I hope you learned a thing or two. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you won't miss out on any of my future videos. And if you haven't already, check out this video. That's where I show you how to blend perfectly with Copic markers. Very important even when you want to use them with those colored pencils. So, see you there, my friends.